this is kind of our base defense, but we change that depending on certain things that are happening, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So there are lots of tactics that we can implement as individual blockers and as teams. So let's watch dedicate. First, this is a middle blocker dedicating, and Chris, we're going to start with Illinois. Will you just explain what a dedicate is and when do you want to use it?
Yeah, so dedicate for us is when there is some overwhelming knowledge that this is where a set's going, or potentially if there's a threat, an overload threat, and we want our middle to be good on the gap go because 80% of the balls are going to go to the gap or the go, we might take away some of that space. In this case, we might be looking at the setter here where the setter's on the run forward like Keegan was mentioning. So looks like our middle's taking a step with the setter there. I would like her to be settled a little bit sooner than she is right now because it looks like the setter still has an opportunity to go back, which she does.
Yep.
And, but we're trying to again, because our game, at least the way it's been developing, it does move a little bit faster. You want to take every little slight advantage you can get. Sometimes that 6 inches a foot in one direction or the other can really put you in a better position to make a better move. In this scenario, this is not a system. We know there's only one way this ball's going. This middle, you could argue she could have done a 5-step approach there, or block approach there, but she just took a little dedicate and went over. But I think a lot of times from our end, you'll see the dedicate based on, again, setter positioning. Here's another one. Setter's on the run forward. The quickest threat happens on between the quick and the outside. And we're still big enough and fast enough to redirect and go the other direction. So a little bit of where the setter is, a little bit of knowledge of the other team's offense. And that's usually when we use a lot of the dedicates. Looks like Keegan's doing that here too.
Keegan, how much of dedicate is the pass versus what you know about your opponent?
Those are the two factors that come together to make that decision. I think the important part is making sure that your blockers are seeing the cues that tell them to dedicate, and at the younger level, out of system dedicates are probably the easiest thing for athletes to see. Passes that are 10 to 12 to 15 feet off are maybe the next easiest thing to see. And then Chris talked about some, if your quick goes here, you're going to dedicate. If the setter gets pushed here, you're going to dedicate, just some more people specific cues that tell us to dedicate. Those are the things that we're talking to our athletes about.
And right now we're watching more of just reading. So how do you coach your athletes when they shouldn't be dedicating, when they should be kind of right? Talking about the middles, just stay in the middle of the court, no matter what.
Yeah. So maybe two things here that if we think both threats are equal on both the outside and the right side, that'd be a reason for us to stay. If you're leaving MacMay open net on a BIC, that's on you. So maybe that's another reason why we're staying here in middle back. Just there's a BIC threat that we think can score against our defenders. So those two things I think are probably what are holding us in the center. Just equal threats on either side. Sometimes an offensive setter, if Jordan Poulter is in a position to dump, and your middle's in front of her, you might want to stay. You may not want to dedicate. She becomes a third attacker. So those are all considerations when deciding to dedicate or not.
Chris, you play a lot of good opposites in the Big Ten. So I imagine that's kind of always on your mind, that you don't want to cheat too much towards outsides when you have all these good opposites.
Yeah, we play a lot of good players in general. So again, it's always, I think that's where the nuance in our game comes in a little bit. It could depend whether or not you're facing a right-handed opposite versus left-handed opposite. Sometimes, your right-handed opposites are coming back into the court a ton. So we don't need to dedicate towards a step to your left. And I would say we dedicate a lot more to the right than we do to the left. Again, that might be a little bit of the imbalance of volleyball that Keegan's talking about.
Yep.
But also, I just think that, we're still big enough and strong enough to make a lot of moves from that position. And that's the ideal for us at this level.